fixing the puncture. And don't forget, Johnny, as we pointed out, 2-minute gaps, 2-minute intervals between the first and second grids going off. So he's squeaked into that. Now he's just got to chase, and it could be a large number of laps before he gets anybody to go out and play with. He was running, I would suggest, in about 12th, 16th position at the time he went off.
We'll keep you abreast of that action. Meanwhile, the BMW M235s are side by side.
Who would have thought it?
Looks like third and fourth, and for fifth and sixth in the background too. They think we'd probably be better off being single file into Tiergarten as this chicane becomes even tighter towards the end.
Okay, I was worried the 55, we snapped back to look at on board with him. He's going slowly. I thought another problem, but he's just coming up to the incident with the Z4 BMW at the side of the circuit. He's now back onto full power. But in the 235i Cup class, sweeping up towards Tiergarten, another Geo. They look great. We love the fact they've got different liveries. And they are raced so hard into Tiergarten, these go. And these aren't the quick ones in the group, because the quick ones are already down towards turn one, but certainly, mate, it's such a fabulous long shot when you get the cars coming towards you, and then you realise how much zoom is being used, and it all suddenly stretches out again as they go through the Tiergarten onto the start-finish straight. But it's the 15 Audi that's leading the way. Romain Dumas, no, it's Frank's. It's not Stippler leading. He's in the lead. The lead car was started. Did we establish if Stippler is in the wheel of that? Or
yes, we did.
Moller Madsen. So Stippler is the definitive starter in that.
Correct. Yeah.
And he's racing against the 911 that wasn't started by Dumas. So therefore, Patrick Pilet at the wheel. Unfortunately, our timing screens just list, I think, the driver who set the qualifying time or who was in the car last before the start of the race. So caution hours gone. We've had a few little tumbles, a couple of drivers running off the circuit and picking up bits of damage. The number 8 Mercedes failing by the time it got to turn 2.5. And then, of course, with the problems for the 55 Renault RS01. No problems at all for the KTM Crossbow, number 925 from eSert Motorsport, carrying one of the onboard cameras, twisting around the circuit. And again on this lap, you look out ahead, as always, for yellow flags. Just seen person standing at the side of the circuit wearing a yellow jacket behind the fence. That wasn't too handy, because some of the drivers might have picked that out as a flag. But again, little specks of rain just at the edge of the screen on some of these cars. But I haven't seen one yet with a windscreen wiper on. So at some point on the circuit, they've had a quick flick, cleared the screen, left the water drops around the outside. But conditions generally bright and getting brighter. But now the lead cars in among the back markers. They've already caught them as they come towards the end of lap 2. Little Opel Astra just being passed
like that
by the race leading Audi, and then the 911 tucked in behind it. This lap, the number 4 Porsche getting much closer. It's dropped the Ferrari from Octane 126, then a duo of Audis tucked in behind. And I think we've got the Land Motorsport car now starting to make a move. The Monteplas by Land Motorsport, Conor De Filippi and Robin Friens in 5th or 6th position.
Looks like 6th, or at least it started 6th on that lap, so it may have gained a couple of places. Still trying to work out whether that's the Evo BMW M6.
They refuse to give us a sighting of the number on the door. We're looking at 53. I think it is 53. It's white, blue and red, and it's going into the pits. We'll get a chance to see it in slow-mo, which isn't really what we wanted.
Yes, Philippe Eng, the only driver allocated to that car, as the Ferrari gets a little bit sideways at turn 1, and this is the chance then for the number 28 Monteplas Audi to at least slither up alongside. Now the Ferrari's going to go wide in the Mercedes arena, and this is a really good chance for Conor De Filippi to pick it off, which he duly does. So up the inside of car number 14 then goes the 28 car, and 14 is going to run wide again to lose another place, this time to the Kern-driven Manthey Porsche.
Yeah, which had led the two of them at the start of the previous lap, lost a bit of ground, but it was a double mistake from the driver of the 14 Ferrari. He went too deep into the corner, then he clattered the curb on the inside and hadn't remembered to do enough braking, so slid to the outside of the circuit. You can see him off position. Drops of rain, little spatters on the lens, not enough to worry them, but they'll have to keep a weather eye, and obviously when they go past the pits next time, they might have a better idea. But I think the wet part of the track is the far end. We're looking at the leading cars still on the Grand Prix circuit, but just approaching the chicane now. But the big loser in the last 30 seconds has been that number 14 Ferrari. Now the Manthey Racing Porsche number 12 is having a real go at the land. Oh, the Ferrari just drove off the circuit on the needed to swing back. Looked as though he was going the back way into the paddock.
Interesting. Okay, so I wonder whether that lurid slide at turn 1 was indicative of something else, maybe a puncture that the Ferrari driver didn't like too much. It's Muller at the wheel of that. We had Eng come in at the end of that lap. We also had the 35 car driven by Jordan Tresson pit, it looked like, as well, from 13th position. And this is very much out of sync, because the car should be doing something like 7 or 8 laps.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness for Schnitzer Motorsport, this is an absolute run out for them in the Evo version of the M6.
Yes.
So bring it in, you expect it to come in and out many times.
True.
Car 34 starting to pick its way up the order a little bit. That's, in fact, it lost an awful lot of ground. It's gaining ground now, but that went down to 25th position, and that's the car that Kelvin van der Linde is sharing with Christopher Zirkling and Peter Schmidt, run by Car Collection Motorsport. Didn't see it tumble on the first lap, but the fact it started up in the front end in 6th position and then fell deep into the top 20 suggests a moment or 3. I'm sure it's just the one. So it's the 15 Audi leading the way from the 911 at 911, but behind them we're certainly starting to see a bit of a charge from the 28 Audi.
No, the 4 Falcon Porsche is more or less with them now. So it's 3 cars for the lead, I make it, on the split times anyway. Then a little bit of a gap, made even more so because the Ferrari's pitted and it's gone through the back section, hasn't it? It did the first sector on the Grand Prix lap, but we effectively will lose now lap 3. Unless it comes out again and restarts lap 3, but it's going to be behind everybody else. Okay,
let's give you screen time. Screen time means we look at what rain is on the screen, and on the KTM Crossbow from Isert Motorsport, there is definitely more precipitation than has been before, and it's not the spray. You can't see spray from the cars in front, but this is going to make something interesting, because let's face it, majority of these drivers are absolute ring experts, but if you're the ring novice and you've not done it yet in the rain, I fancy, with the rain falling early this morning in qualifying, the best thing would be put your novice out there. But then again, if they drop it, you don't get to race, do they? So
no.
What would you do as the team manager? You have to select who to put out in the car, but you need to know the Nordschleife with a greasy surface, because let's face it, you're lucky if you don't get it, but your chances are you will get it at some point during a race weekend.
Into Flugplatz then the KTM Crossbow goes. The Ferrari is going to rejoin number 14. The 4 headlights come on together with the amber, more traditional headlights. So it's almost like a kind of fog light system they've got going there in the gloom. Can the Ferrari get it stopped at turn 1? Yes, just about, although that wasn't the conventional line, with the Swiss flag resplendent on the rear wing end plates. And that Ferrari effectively now a lap down. Well, no, it's not.
No, it's effectively
it's still about, what,
probably
a quarter of a lap down.
Yeah, a quarter of a lap.
Despite it having started lap 3 with everybody else, it's been put back considerably now, because
I just wonder if Alex Muller just ran slightly wide when he was being passed, went out on the curb, got an instant deflation, then at the next corner where I said he just well, I did say he hit the curb on the inside.
Yes.
He might have hit it because he already had a puncture, but certainly he was on a peculiar line and was immediately overtaken and went from 3rd back to 4th, back to 5th, and then into the pits. The very strange route, but he'll be thanking his lucky stars that incident, if it was indeed a puncture, happened where it did, before he passed that extra entrance to the pits from the back.
That's, I suppose, the good thing about this track as well, is that to actually go a lap down, you have to be 8 or 9 laps off the pace. 8 or 9 minutes off the pace, rather. The leaders are something like 4 or 5 minutes ahead of it now, and somewhere in the longest sector on the lap, sector 4, this Nürburgring Nordschleife used for the VLN is separated into 5 different parts, by the way, unlike a conventional Grand Prix track, which normally has 3 sectors. The final sector of the lap is effectively the whole of the Dottinger Höhe, which takes them about 40 seconds to negotiate. Gleaming sunlight, it would appear, on this part of the circuit, so rain not a threat for car 62, the Gigaspeed Team GetSpeed performance car from the 911 GT America. Traffic up ahead and of varying speeds, having to go around the outside of a little Audi TT. That's one of the intervention vehicles, possibly.
No, I think that's that's Arto in his Team Toyota Thailand. I just saw a flash, and now he's pointing that he wants the driver. Yeah, this is the thing, when you've got a quick... You're doing the overtaking of the slower cars, but then the race leading group of cars come through, and you've got to let it by as well. But don't forget, if the rain comes down a bit more heavily, we're going to have a dry line and a wet line, and that's when the overtaking becomes really, really interesting. But for now, that was a good driving from the number 62 Porsche, running the SP7 class. Frank Kraling, Mark Gindorf and Christopher Brook passing the slower cars from the junior classes, but in turn moving aside as one of the real front runners came on through. Still the 15 Audi leading from the 911 Porsche, and that number 4 Porsche from Falcon Motorsports getting closer and closer. 3.5 seconds cover them at the end of lap 2. Will it be the same? I think we're starting to see Frank Stippler escaping in that number 15 Phoenix Racing Audi, but certainly the leader in the M235i Cup class is not escaping. It's very close indeed. The first couple of cars covered by, well, you're dealing in tiny bits of a second. They've just gone through the loop of the first corner, almost on the tail of a different BMW. That's the M6 GT3 Evo. It's just, we reported it coming in to see the crew at Schnitzer Motorsport back out onto the circuit, just in front of the 235's eye, because otherwise he'd be quite delayed for a number of corners, because they're so busy having their own battle, including 694 deep in the mix, multicoloured car, and
windscreen wipers definitely on for the class leader, which is the 675 car from Pixum Team Adrenaline, the David Griesner, I should say, and Daniel Zill's car, the Austrian and the Bendorf-based German. And right on his tail, I think that's 691, the black car.
Yeah, Bonk Motorsport black, memory. That's right. So it's Michael Schrey et al., but he's having a really, really good run, tucked under the tail of the orange and blue 675, which is one of a number from Pixum Team Adrenaline Motorsport. Do we describe that as orange and blue or blue and orange? Now, it's orange on the outside, blue up the middle, so I think we'll put it that way around, where the sister cars are quite the reverse.
Leaders in amongst, well, having to lap the Opel Manta, and now the two-tone blue Falcon Porsche has lost a little bit of ground on the two leaders. Yeah, and what's happened, he's lost a bit of ground, and Conor De Filippi is coming for him and getting closer and closer in the 28 Audi from Monteplas by Land Motorsport. So it's tightening up. That we put in the number four car, Falcon Motorsport car. Martin sharing that with Martin Ragginger, but he is in there first. Klaus Bachler, just such a tidy driver. Really, the last 2 or 3 years, he's built his reputation enormously. One thing in the VLN racing series, it requires drivers to cooperate with others. They have to, I mentioned before about, oh, hold on, I'm not mentioning anything at the moment, because the lead battle has tightened up to under a second. It was 1 and a bit seconds at the end of the previous lap, but coming up towards the end of lap 3, it's way under a second. And yes, the Falcon Motorsports Porsche has dropped it off its tail in 3rd place, had caught them, but that is being caught definitely. Lights a flash on the Monteplas by Land Motorsport Audi. That is closing in and closing fast. So it's Audi, Porsche, and you get the feeling and the pace that the 28 Monteplas car is setting. That will be up with the leaders very soon indeed. Waiting to see its best time. The best lap so far, 8 minutes 21 by our race leading Audi, but those behind very close on times as well. But this lap, just getting a feeling that 28 is on the move. Started the lap in 5th position. The Ferrari was out of the mix when it had to come in with a puncture. And number 4 Porsche is being hunted down. So a great lap by Monteplas by Land, but it's still the Stippler number 15 Phoenix Racing Audi leading the way. 4 laps very nearly on the board. Interestingly though, Conor De Filippi driving that 4th placed Monteplas car, deciding to weave from left to right between Vorsteiner Curve and Advan Bogen. So despite having to negotiate traffic probably into the chicane towards the end of the Grand Prix lap, still needing a bit of tyre temperature or maybe tyre pressure, and therefore weaving as if it was a warm-up lap. I thought that'd be costing him time, but maybe just having the opportunity. That's probably the only place you can do it. You can't weave on the Nordschleife itself unless you get to the Dottinger Höhe, of course, and you're not needing to get by slower moving traffic. Car 925 is one of the KTM crossbows, and it's pursued by car 926. So it's the red and black crossbow and the green and black crossbow. The Stuck and Stuck car may well be therefore in 2nd place in that class. Great to have these cars as a regular part of the VLN now. They started off in their early days as open cockpit cars. They now have this clamshell canopy, though, that shuts down, clicks down around the driver, and they sort of clamber out from on top of the car when
well, this is entirely it. You
they?
need to be nimble to get into most racing cars, getting in through the framework. But for these, I tell you what, when those tops are off, it just draws people to look at it. It just seems peculiar, but they are very special little cars, and they've got a lot of people into racing. They race in the European GT4 series with great aplomb. Sometimes they win races, sometimes they don't, against cars that you sort of heard of a bit more. But the sheer number of cars that KTM have pushed out, it's been fantastic. But they are a novelty. They're no longer a novelty. Actually.
No.
Be racing long enough to be part of the establishment. Good to see the Porsche K3 is still going after that absolute rocket start in the second grouping, and good to see that the 14 Ferrari that had been running fourth early on is back out after that puncture was changed. After the little quick flick around the back of the pits and back into the pit lane, picked up a puncture, continuing on its way, but that's dropped it way down the order, outside the top 20, I would think, just waiting maybe the very tail end of the top 20. Just waiting for the timing screen to kick in. And I think we're looking at a deficit of about 2.5 minutes, maybe slightly more, to the race-leading Audi. Great liveries on the 925 and 926 KTMs, both entered by ESET Motorsport. In fact, they've entered a trio of these cars, 4 of them in class, 3 entered by ESET.
So the 14 car trying to gather some places up. It's on the boot lid of one of the that's the TCR car, I believe, the Audi RS3, the booted version of the A3 effectively. And there is a TCR class now contained within the entry, as there really needs to be. TCR on the up and up, coming to the UK next year as well. And the Audi within class TCR is probably the 801 car then of the 3 Norwegians. So that's just ahead of a recovering Ferrari, number 14. Although I think we may have caught a glimpse of the other RS3, which is the LMS Engineering, Matthias Vassal and Marcus Lurnet 803 car. There are 2 Audi RS3 LMSs in the entry. More yellow flags, and was getting word a little while ago of a car stranded in the Adenauer Forst section of the track. This does look like Adenauer Forst.
Well, just been past the incident, and I could see rescue vehicles, but I couldn't see a car. But the car's still going slowly. Now they're released out of the Adenauer Forst. So I'm afraid we thought that was the golden moment to fill you in on what had happened out at the back. But alas, Jones here failed to look through the rescue vehicles to see what was up against the barriers. No drops of rain on the screen here, so that section of the circuit at least we're in the clear weather-wise.
This is plunging further and further down the hill as they descend towards Veersifen and on towards the bridge at Bergwerk. So about 9 kilometres into the full circuit at Bergwerk, and then the climb up through Kesselchen and Klostertal.
Just want to throw in a little bit of housework. How far did the number 14 Ferrari fall to 45th place, having now lost 4 minutes effectively?
Yes.
I thought it might tuck in about 28th place, but the timing screen kept putting different names up. I'm afraid that has been an expensive one. But great to have the Ferrari on board, and let's see how high it can work its way forward. We've still got effectively 3.5 hours of racing here around the Nordschleife. Round 6 of the VLN for 2017. The grids get not bigger, they get better, and that's the beauty of it all.
And more varied.
Exactly
seemingly.
So.
With the organisers having to weave in even more classes. Now, there's a slow car working its way. No, that's one of the touring car machines, so that's about the speed that little Honda Civic can do. And those driving quicker cars needing to be mindful of that. Because even if you haven't actually driven a TCR car or one of the V3 machines, you have to put yourself in those guys' shoes and say, they're on the ragged edge, and I'm still just pushing at sort of 70%. So it's me that has to make way for those guys, or at least kind of drive around them with the amount of respect necessary. There are 2 Hondas in the entry, both from V3, so that could have been the 517 or the 511 car. Leader back through.
4 laps completed. It's still the 15 Audi leading the way for Phoenix Racing by, I would think, about 3 seconds. A couple of seconds gained on that lap, but a huge gaggle of cars up ahead of it. So where can Frank Stippler pick them off? Nikolai Moller-Batz will be looking on from the pit garage. Hugely interested because he'll be taking the 15 car over. And deep among the early twists of the Grand Prix circuit, we have our race leader making its way past the 235i Cup cars. But as I said before, these cars are fighting for position. He's managed to pick off 3 of them very speedily indeed before he gets the tight right hand that leads them towards the dip. But of course that they enter and drop down to the bottom of the slope before they climb up to the chicane. And the 911 Porsche, again, lights flashing away as Patrick Pilet tries to alert those ahead of him to get out of the way. The 15 Audi has done very well. 3 cars between himself and the Porsche. No cars between because they were 3 abreast and the Porsche went around the outside. Such is the performance advantage of the GT3 cars over the M235i Racing Cup cars. Up to the chicane they go. The 235i is just so entertaining through here. They've got a fair bit of body roll, still very, very taut, but in comparison to GT3 cars, they wallow that little bit, as you'd expect from more production-based racers, and are great fun. The number 4 Porsche from Falken Motorsports, Klaus Bachler at the wheel, he's up in 3rd, and in fact I thought he was going to be picked off by the Monteplas by Land Motorsport Audi of De Filippi, but he's got about a 3-4 second advantage over it. Top 2 covered by just under 3 seconds, and there's a 10-second gap back to the Bachler Falken Motorsport Porsche, and then, as I say, 4 seconds back to 4th place. So starting to spread out, but not the lead battle. Yes, a couple of seconds gained, but still containable. 4 cars, 6 cars now. The second Mantic Porsches start across the start-finish line. Next car into sight should be Al Faisal in the black Falken number 7 Mercedes. He's showing with Hubert Hout. And I'm afraid we've got a pit visitor. One of the Porsche Cup cars, I think, coming into the pits, but certainly the number 1 car in that class. One of our TV camera carrying cars, Gigaspeed Porsche, continuing on its way with Steve Yance at the wheel. Driver change. David Yarn is being put on board, sharing with Mike Bockman. And that's Team 75 Motorsport entry. Yarn and Bockman, number 117, so that's a very early driver change, but they've got it out of the way. Maybe the drivers thought, oh, a little bit much rain, let's give someone else a chance. But Bockman handing over, that's Marek Bockman to David Yarn.
Okay, so some more of the Toyota GT86s, which is easy for me to say, working their way across the line together with the BMW 235i's. There's a fair bit of mix-up of the classes there. The Renault, number 55, the RS01, still having to recover 2. KTM's hammer and tongs, red against green, and it's still in that order as they head down towards the first corner as well. But sadly, the G-Tronics Renault having to come from quite a way down after what we assume was a slow puncture. Now, one of the Racing Cup Peugeots, and some overtaking in the pit lane exit road there as Porsche ducks by that small Porsche, the small Peugeot 306. And both cars are back into the race there. Neither of them crossed the blend line, crucially, from pit lane exit to main track, so I think they should get away with that.
If I fell silent for a moment there, Johnny, I was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling to see how far that Renault RS01 had dropped. 116th position, because don't forget he was 2/3 the way around the lap when the puncture struck, had to limp in, so he lost a whole lot more time than the number 14 Ferrari, who did that very clever quick flick back way into the pit lane. And that fell to, what did we say, about 45th? Yeah, 45th position. Will be picking his way up the order, but a big mountain to climb for the Renault RS1. That's number 55, just remember that. Outside the top 100, 116th. But we'll pick it up, see how they progress. Dieter Schmidtmann listed as the driver at the wheel at the moment.
Yes, SPX is currently led by the 54 car, by the way, in 18th position. I have Hamprex driving that right now. I'm not sure whether that is the case, though, for the 54. Meanwhile, great to see some of the Renault Meganes duking it out. In fact, there's a KTM caught behind one of those cars, and that's able to now squeeze through at the Hats and back and on towards effectively Flugplatz.
Yeah, that's the number 925 KTM.
Okay.
Ferdinand and Johannes Stuck, I think, are our camera carriers.
There's 925, and I think 926 is right on
behind.
Its tail.
Yeah. 95 is the red one, and the red and black one. Oh, the K3, the Porsche K3 is in the pits. Very tidy looking pit stop from our super starter in the second batch of cars. So as Johnny just pointed out, it's the SP9, and overall lead, there is the number 15 Audi, Phoenix Racing, the leader in the next class down. Let me have a quick look. SP7 is the 62 entry of Frank Kraling. Cup 2 is being led by Alexander Mies in the number 1 Porsche.
14th overall.
14th overall, and yes, Hamprek, 19th overall, leading the SPX class.
And obviously dramas for the Aston Martin GT8 early on means that car's fallen to the back of the pack, and I think is still running. They must have fixed that car and it's returned to the track, but it's the 126 car now that leads the SP8 class. Car 126 being the Conrad Motorsport Porsche 991 Cup car of Matthias Huttenrauch and Hannes Plesser, together with Dr. Michael Kreiborer. So 978 and 941 are two Caymans having a good little scrap on the Mercedes arena.
Two of a cast of thousands, it must be said.
Yes,
literally.
In Cup 3, Porsche Cayman GT4 CSs, so Club Sport cars. The bright yellow livery is impressive, and that car is going to get the jump on 978. Ooh, as long as he can hold on to it through the hairpin, he can't, so the places are going to be reversed once more, with that central headlight piercing the slight gloom there. And again, just a little bit of greasiness on the track there. And 941 can almost get up alongside again. 941 is another Gigaspeed performance Porsche of Max Jens and Daniel Mörch. So Max and Jens are not their real names, should we say, and Daniel Mörch appears to be for the man from Berlin.
Well, what we've seen in this lap, in fact, this is fighting for 4th place in the Cup 3 class, is the one that's on the move is the 941. It's the yellow and black car that's giving chase, and that's gained about 3 or 4 positions on track. But the Cup 3 class overall lead is with 979, which is the premium motor oil, Mabinol premium motor oil entry, shared by run by Müller Motorsports. Hamza Awega, Alex Schuller and Moritz Krantz. Why do those names ring a bell? They are the overall championship leaders as they come here. So they don't just do this by turning up every time, they do it by leading the class. And the person who wants to be leading the class to get maximum points, leading the race, but he's not there yet. Still in 3rd place is that number 4 Porsche. Lights are flashing as he comes across BMW back marker, but it's Klaus Bechler, the Austrian racer, down into turn 1. But the fact of the matter is he's now 13.5 seconds down on the race leading 15 Audi, so it's actually at various points the circuit impossible for him to sit. He's got to keep his foot down. His last lap was a 2 minutes 10, but unfortunately for him, the last lap was the best lap for the race leader. 2 minutes, sorry, did I say 2 minutes? 8 minutes 10, and the race leader 8 minutes 3. No wonder the advantage is going out. The 911 Porsche is trying to hang on. That's 2.8 seconds down, but the first 2 are really stripping clear. I think traffic would have had a little role to play in that sizable advantage, but certainly the 15 Audi is the first car coming through with the lights are flashing and probably gets the best run with the traffic. SP9 cars filling the top 12 positions, then SP7 is the next grouping down. That's number 62 entry, Kraling, we believe, at the wheel at the moment, and that's running in the SP7 class. One of the handful of Porsches run by Gigaspeed team Get Speed Performance. That's their 911 GT America, 13th overall.
Still nothing between all of these BMW M235i's though, and plenty of them running out wide. That's the treble 6 car I reckon, in the deeper blue, then followed by 695 and the green and orange car, which is 694. They're all numbered within the 600 range. 669, something like 7th position in the class, but earlier on we saw the Black Bonk Motorsport car up in 2nd position and scrapping away, and it does look like those two leading 235i cars from Cup 5 have broken away, and actually the treble 6 car now in 3rd position in the class, starting to be drawn in.
Yeah, 691 is clear, leading the class. What position overall? Scroll down screen. 73rd position.
It's actually 675 that leads from 691, and they are nose to tail.
Oh, sorry, they're just swapped round. Okay, while I looked at the screen, there's...
Well, your screen may be more up to date than mine, but certainly those two are in a kind of leading pair. And then we have Thomas Jaeger, 3rd position in the treble 6 car, and slowly being caught by the Hannanen car, 669, also 695 and 694. That's something like the top 6 all involved. Older shape Mercedes heading through the Tiergarten now. Again, this is an area that looks a little bit damp into the chicane, although the car doesn't show any signs of getting squirrely. Different ages of asphalt, I think, around this place as well, which is deceiving, because you get the darker shade, which makes it look like it's wet, but actually it's just been laid more recently. Renault RS01 able to pick off another spot. Car 55 just ducking on the inside of 685, which is another Cup 5 car, down in 12th position in class.
And why do you say that? I wait to see. It looks though Dieter Schmidtmann's gained about 20 places in that 55 Renault RS01. He was 116th. They're waiting for the screen to update, but I think he'll come past in 95th position. So a lot of overtaking in the space of one lap, but he's got to just keep chasing after the other cars in his class. And don't forget, the 55 is running in the SPX group. We normally expect them to be tucked in behind the SP9 runners that fill the top dozen positions or so. So 55 still playing catch up. Out front, it's still the Phoenix Racing Audi leading the way. Frank Stipler at the wheel, and he's just added another 2 seconds to his lead. He's just under 5 seconds clear of Patrick Pilet in the 911 Manthey Racing Porsche. Still Klaus Bachler in 3rd position, and he lost a little bit more ground on that lap, but not as much as the previous lot. He's 17 seconds now in arrears in 3rd place overall. Conor De Philippi, I thought he had the opportunity to close in, but he lost 5 seconds to Bachler last time around. So the Monteplas by Land Racing Audi is in 4th place, having picked off a few of the others. He's still got the Lars Kern, number 12, Manthey Racing Porsche, tucked in behind him, but that is now falling away. The tyres maybe not as good as they were earlier in the race for the number 12 Manthey Racing crew. So they're in 6th, and they're not catching, they're falling back. And in fact, in between them is the 59 entry with Steve Smith, also from Manthey Racing. So there's been a change of position in the last lap or so between those two Manthey cars. 12 is now behind 59, but their teammate Patrick Pilet is in 2nd place overall, doing all he can to give chase, to catch up, to keep Frank Stipler in sight. But it's the advantage to the Phoenix Racing Audi as we go towards 3/4 of an hour on the clock. Have been completed, just a bit more now, in fact 47 minutes precisely, and it's Audi leading the way from Porsche, Audi, then 2 more Porsches.
Still only 1.2 seconds separating the top 2 KTMs, 925 ahead of 926, and yeah, the Stuck and Stuck car fending off the Hofmeister driven 926 machine. And they are on the hats and back now, pursuing the white and lime green Porsche. Looks like this KTM is slightly faster than that Porsche, but can't find a way by at the moment. And there's damage for the front right corner of possibly the Porsche that started from the front of Group 2.
Yeah, black bonnet, red wings, but unfortunately headlights blaze. It comes down, smoke pouring from the right hand side of the car, driver's right, because the front right wheel is at an angle it shouldn't be. It's flared right out, I'd say about 30 degrees out of true. Will it stay on the car? The drivers bring it back at still some fair speed. Car's not wobbling, but the vibration he'll be getting up through the steering will be giving his arms the massage he did not want. Creeping up towards the end of the straight. Will it get back to the pits? Looking for confirmation. Is that 588 we see on the bonnet? I believe it is.
I was looking for 688. One number out. But 588 is the TAM Racing 911 car, which is a GT3 Cup machine.
And a lot of grass in every orifice on the front of the car. That has been off the circuit. I don't think we're going to find a replay. It's very hard around the Nordschleife to be there where it happened, because let's face it, there are many, many corners where it could happen. Was that a slightly damp patch? Caught him out. Either way, front right damage there, so limping its way back. It should get back. Meanwhile, the race continues with 3 hours and 11 minutes still to go until the checkered flag, and it's advantage Audi at the moment. Porsche had been so dominant in a lot of these races, but Audi been there in the mix. Is it their turn to strike? 28th position overall. The overall championship leaders, Ovega, Schuler and Krantz in their Porsche Cayman. Very good looking car. Light blue on the top, white underneath with a black bonnet, and leading their class and doing it the way they've been doing it pretty much all season. So looking very good for them today. Around the stadium section of the circuit, bright sunshine, but we know there are clouds passing by, and some have been dropping a tiny bit of rain out at the far end of the track. And limping its way back, the red and black Porsche's made it in. The Schnitzer Motorsport M6 Evo coming in for another pit stop, but don't forget it's really a test run for that one. That's peeled off behind as the tattered, battered Porsche makes it back to the pits. But does the damage extend beyond the front splitter? Oh, change of position, suddenly cut back from the pit lane, and the 911 Porsche has gained back those nearly 5 seconds, taken the lead, and as we look at it, around the outside goes the Audi back into the lead. Wow. How did he lose the position? Coming towards the end of the lap, waved white flags, slow-moving car in track, rain looking as though it's in the background. Oh, it's a rescue vehicle, had nearly got up to Tiergarten, but all we need to tell you is the first two, we had to change of position, which we didn't see. We then had the change back with the Audi going in front, which we did see. Now coming up to the start-finish line, and if there's half a second between them, that's as much as it possibly could be, I reckon. It's slightly less than that, so very good lap for the 911, but the ease with which the Audi came back past again was quite astonishing.
Yes, around the outside of Antonius Bucher, it looked like that kink part way down the Dottinger Höhe as the Audi, but the Porsche looks quicker on the Mercedes Arena. This is first and second. We've had 51 minutes of this race, and it's more or less like the start of the lap of lap one. Bear in mind, this is now on to that's 6 laps completed, on to lap 7, so either one of these cars may pit at the end, but they're side by side. The Manthey Porsche partly on the grass there as they run down towards the sharp hairpin partway around the Grand Prix lap. Again they're overlapping, Audi up alongside, more or less touching as they exit that corner. Next we go through the left-hander, the Michael Schumacher S just in the background. This is the Vorsteiner chicane, or the Vorsteiner S, and then out towards Advan Bogen down the hill. But we had Porsche briefly ahead, we had Audi briefly ahead. Now the Manthey Porsche establishes itself with Patrick Pilet driving it. Frank Stippler, though, sticking with him, and there is traffic ahead. So still the possibility of the places changing again, even at Hatzenbach.
It was almost as though the driver of the 911 got a message that the driver of the Phoenix Audi did not get, which is, this is the last lap of the race, get a move on. And so we've got another course vehicle moving slowly. Sorry, that's one of the competitors limping in rather slowly. And these things, we don't know how suddenly the Frank Stippler Audi lost a near on 5-second lead. But the way he came back past, as you said, at the Antonius Bucher kink on the long drag back to the pits, made it very, very hard to explain. Was there a brief off-track moment? Maybe there was an excursion for the Audi, having tried to pass a slower car. Got it all wrong, but that's just absolute supposition. The way he caught up and then went back past again suggested he still has the best performance. But Dumas' speed through the Pilet's speed through the stadium section of the circuit, the twisty corners, showed that 911 Porsche is very, very handy at that particular point on the circuit. The
slow 250 car, by the way, the BMW 325, which is the only SP4 car in the race. Simona Barin, Roberto Barin, and Mauro Simicini. So one Italian, that's Mauro, and then 2 Swiss drivers, Simone and Roberto. And sadly that car touring its way towards the end of its current lap. And despite it being the only entry in SP4, there'll be somebody else out there to battle with, be assured of that. Meanwhile, another one of the Caymans heading through towards the Vidal chicane. That's car 418. And
that's not running in the Cayman GT4 trophy. So
that's a V6 car, I make it. Third in its class. And 68th overall car, 418. Meanwhile, the engine notes you hear in the
fully
background.
wet at the backside of the
Yes,
circuit. We went from nothing, a little spatter of rain on the screen, sunshine and rain as we ride with Adam Fabian in his Cayman GT4. In fact, he's been bold enough to overtake another runner as they drop down to Exmüller. They've only got Bergwerk coming up ahead, no problem at all in the dry.
Yes.
Through the dip, but certainly Adam Fabian's been quite bold in his car. He's picking off another 911 up ahead. That's 105. Hasn't quite picked it off, but he's certainly showing a lot of intent. And now we're going back to slightly less wet element of the circuit. So it's changing fast. They get to Bergwerk. It's dried out a fair bit, but certainly as they drop down the slope to Exmüller out of Verseifen, it was full wet. Ho ho! The Nürburgring Nordschleife in all its finest weather testing element.
yes, and unpredictability as well, as Fabian's got a handful there of zero traction, just trying to apply the power. You can hear it in the background, but he's having to press the loud pedal, then realise that's a bit too much, so ease off again, correct the steering. Now, is it drying up a little bit out of the trees? The weather, no, it's still coming down at a fair rate of knots, but the beauty of this circuit, because it covers such a large footprint, means that it's raining on this part of the track and is dry on the Grand Prix circuit in the other corner. So car 105, it's just overtaken, was the 6th placed Cup 2 car, and this 940 machine is a Cup 3 machine. Yeah, from Cup 3, 940 is currently 3rd in class, trying to chase down the 979 and the 966, which is the class leader in Cup 3.
Another broken looking car, the 949, is it broken?
Yes.
It's just a funny camera angle, but no, it's definitely limping back to the pit. So we're talking of the Cup 3 class and one of the Sorg Rennsport entries. Couldn't see if it had a puncture, but it's travelling at a slightly strange angle. Can't see any bent bodywork, but anyhow, pit bound it is, and it arrives in the pits right now as one of the KTM crossbows go past. That was the car that was chasing in the group.
That's got a out of alignment rear left wheel, I would say.
You're
possibly.
right, Johnny.
I'm not sure whether it's pranged the barrier and that's bent the suspension, as there's some BMW overlapping taking place. A very rapid looking M-type BMW ahead of the 482 machine. 482 I don't think is it's a V4 car, and the crossbow's in there as well. 482 is the class leader, but fending off 492, so that is the class within V4, that's the class lead. Very close indeed, and these two machines are about to be overtaken by the number 14 Ferrari, which continues to make up places.
Yeah, just waiting. That rose last lap. It was 45th, and it rose up to 27 last lap. Waiting for it to finish this next lap for the timing screen to reinvent itself, but maybe getting towards the tail of the top 20. So it's not a case of what might have been. It's a case of just pressing on and seeing what it can become. But yes, these gaggles of cars. And we talked about the faster M6 up ahead of the lead battle you were discussing from Cup 3, and maybe a puncture for that one. That went off the circuit, has rejoined, dropping a bit of gravel down on the Grand Prix circuit. It's car 151. Again, we have to flick down the entry list. It's an
SPAT car, yeah.
Ah, it's BMW M4. That's
M4, right.
Of course. Don't get used to seeing them on tracks very much.
And it's going to duck in.
The back way to the pits.
Yes.
I think he got a puncture. I think he went off. Maybe he already had the puncture, or maybe he got it coming out of the gravel, but certainly having rejoined, front right corner looks a little bit low.
And that car probably on Pirellis. I've fallen for a car sponsored by a tyre manufacturer and then actually not running the same rubber, but I'm going to guess...
better to say nothing, Johnny.
True it is, yes. But I do love the fact that there's all sorts of different tyre manufacturers at this event as well. A true tyre battle going on.
But of course, where better to do it, because you've got all sorts of different weather conditions. I'm quick on the dry parts of the track, not so quick on the wet bits. Which are the wet bits? They've changed from the last time I saw them, just under 10 minutes ago. Fastest lap of the race still remains 8 minutes 3.582, set by Frank Stipler. Next best time is a 8:05.173, so no wonder he is right at the sharp end of the field. Is he in front of the 911 Porsche of Patrick Pilet? Can't tell you right now, waiting for the next timing sector to be completed, but clearly 0.3 of a second precisely between them on the start-finish line. This one's going to go for a bit. I really, really feel. And if Klaus Bachler could close in, that's a big if. He hasn't shown that performance recently, but certainly that last lap from Pilet in the 911 was 4 seconds faster than the race leading car, and that is why he got back into the mix. So it wasn't so much a case of a problem for Stippler in a Felix Racing Audi. It clearly was just a really, really good lap from Patrick Pilet. Maybe there's more of that to come.
And of course, pit stops will need to be factored in, possibly at the end of this lap, lap 7, certainly at the end of lap 8, because a GT3 car can't do any more than 8 laps in my experience. We do sometimes see one of the SP7 cars briefly lead the race as well, because the SP7s are slightly more conservative on their fuel usage and they can extend their stint length to 9 laps where necessary. It is Pilet through at the end of sector 4 first, and we're waiting to see then Frank Stippler. It's got to be up to 10 seconds now, this gap, before Stippler appears. Now he does.
Yeah, well, I tell you how brave it is. You look at the lap time. He's gaining about. He's got to sector 4. Each sector he's improved.
Yeah.
His advantage over. Into the pits we have. Is that?
That's not the Phoenix car. Although,
yes, it is. Both the first two have come into the pits.
So my screen is way behind.
But that's what caught me out. I thought there must be other cars in similar systems. So what we have is Romain Dumas. We saw him chatting in the pits during the first lap of the race. He's waiting to haul Patrick Pilet out of the car. But who's going to have the better pit stop? Is it going to be Phoenix Racing, who came in? Well, we don't know the split between them, but it wasn't quite nose to tail. I'd say a couple of second advantage for the yellow and green Mante Racing Porsche.
It was more than a couple of seconds, because there was a second gained on the first sector, that's the Grand Prix circuit, another second gained, and then 3, and then 5.
Okay, well, so let's call that 8 seconds. 8 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, foreshortening shot down the pit lane as they came in. More cars arriving, and one's parked immediately in front of the 911 Porsche, which could be a little issue if they need to swing around. It looked like a Honda Civic.
Has Klaus Bachler come in as well, or does Klaus Bachler now lead the race? The Monteplast Audi's come in, number 28 from 4th position.
Well, the second Manti Racing Porsche, number 12, in fact, it's the third one, 59 had moved into ahead of it, but 12 continues on its way. That's started by Lars Kern.
Interesting. So the 7th placed car certainly up to within the top 3 now, would be my estimation. And we'll check on the order of the cars towards the end of this circuit of the Grand Prix lap. But the key players, 911 and 15, pitting on the same lap.
At the 1 hour mark, it's worth pointing out, or
yes,
it's close to.
And that's 7 laps done, bearing in mind that we probably will reach 28 laps distance, somewhere between 27 and 28 laps. So they're splitting the cake 4 ways, aren't they, to do it in 7 lap stints. You can extend and do 8 laps, but then that leaves you just slightly out of sync towards the end. So it looks like the 12 car is the only car to stay out. Everyone else ahead of it has decided to stop. The 911, the 15, the 4 car of Klaus Bachler to hand over presumably to Martin Raginger. Conor De Filippi I spotted in the pit lane. The 59 Porsche has also stopped together with the 7 car, the Mercedes. So all of the top 6 have come in. Now, the cars are up on the dolly jacks and spun through 45 degrees. This is standard, just to make sure that the exit from pit lane is as quick as possible. Yes, there is the formerly driven by Klaus Bachler Porsche, number 4. And the M4, which pitted after just doing a Grand Prix lap, is back on the move as well.
As is the 911, and now the 15 gets away. We reckon 8 to 10 seconds between them. I'd say it's possibly come down, but then when you get the cars coming out at low speed, no, I'd say it's about the same as they get underway. In the background, the Fulco Motorsports Porsche is back going again. Little Honda Civic moves straight into its path, waiting to see the Monteplast by Land Motorsport Audi that should be going. That's closer to pit exit, waiting for that to be spun round so it can get back out onto the circuit. But that seems to have lost a little bit more ground. So the first 3 back out onto the circuit, and we talked of the top 6 coming in. In fact, it was 6 of the top 7 cars, but from 6th place, the number 12 Porsche continued on its way. So that will come in next time around to be handed over from Lars Kern to Otto Close. So Manti Racing leading the race at the point of pit stops and leading it through the pit stops since they left one of their two sister cars out on the circuit. So Martin Ragginger now back, well, not back, he's on board the number 4 Porsche, trying to see if he can build on or even improve the form that was shown in the first stint of the race by his teammate Klaus Bachler. Came in from 3rd position, looks like it went back out into effective 3rd position. Of course, we've still got the rolling issue of number 12 Manthey Racing Porsche not coming in for its pit stop that lap, but you certainly feel this next time around it will. And the margin of difference between the 911 that had such a strong final lap under Patrick Pilet, now in the hands of Romain Dumas, didn't lose any time at all in the pits. It looks so that was even Stevens with the chasing 15 Audi, and Frank Stipler showing that with Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Didn't actually see the driver change. We did see it for the 911 Porsche crew. And again, we've got some slow moving traffic out on the circuit, so we've got another incident up ahead. Can't tell you exactly where it is right now. The track looks clear. Looking for flags up ahead, wave green flags, they can get underway. We've seen the exit of that incident, didn't see the incident however. BWT Buka Motorsport, Mercedes in the pit lane, that is new on board this weekend. Car number 34 from Car Collection Motorsport, sorry, not Buka Motorsport, it's just the BWT livery, the pink with the bubbles, the aerated bubbles all over its flanks. Of course, run by Buka Motorsport in FIA. European Formula 3 Championship, this is Car Collection Motorsport. Kelvin van der Linde, Christopher Zirkling and Peter Schmidt back out. That was just at the tail end of the top 10.
There was a delay for the Montreplast Audi during that pit stop cycle. Most of the cars able to do the first sector and their pit stop in just over 4 minutes. However, the 28 car, it took 4 minutes and 14 seconds and has come through behind the 59 and behind the 7 car.
Okay, so it lost 2 positions in its running order, but effectively that would be 3 if the number 12 Porsche comes in and makes a clean pit stop.
Yes.
What is the point during a VLN pit stop in which the cars are turned from sitting parallel with the pit garage to have their nose pointed out? Because I noticed that one hadn't been spun round and the others all had.
Interesting.
As
okay.
we had the long shot at pit exit, I thought, is there a point where the wheels have been changed? Now they move it around.
They'll do the driver change, they'll do the tyres, they'll fuel it, and then I think they.
Okay, so that was the indicator.
Dolly's gone underneath, and
it hadn't got to that point, whereas its rivals had.
Yeah. Okay, car 26 running 8th on the road. We put Christian Hohenadel at the wheel initially, didn't we? So Eduardo Mortara should now pilot that in the familiar kind of pale pink colours of BWT.
Sorry, I talked complete nonsense. So I decided that the pink Mercedes was number 34. Of course, isn't. That's the Audi from Car Collection Motorsport. So the BWT liveried Mercedes AMG, as Johnny pointed out correctly. Number 26, Hohenadel to Eduardo Mortara, looking good, sounding good, and trying to continue its progress. Came in from 8th position for its pit stop, didn't look to lose time. Again, great cutaway to a bit of onboard footage. Adam Fabian again in his Cayman GT4, car number 940. And he's showing us a dry run around the back part of the circuit. Sort of 2/3 distance around the lap. That's dry. The wettest part is halfway around the lap. Haven't seen it for a couple of minutes to see if it's continuing to tip down there, but certainly the weather looks fair up ahead. The track looks nigh on completely dry, but unfortunately for Adam Fabian, he's got a couple of cars ahead of him, a couple of back-marking BMWs. He's swept past one of them, but they are delaying him.
By the way, it says Adam Fabian on the screen. That is throwing us off because that's actually the first names of the 2 drivers.
Adam and Fabian.
Yeah.
Use your notes, don't just jump to conclusions.
So we have Adam Osika and Fabian Schiller. And Fabian Schiller I followed during the Renault RS1 season last year, and Schiller's gone on into a little. He's now gone into Blancpain.
He does. Blancpain, and I was really impressed with him in the first race of the season at Misano. He's a racer, isn't he?
Very much.
Looking back at his record, he's also a winner. He's also got rain on his windscreen. In fact, I think that is probably Adam Osieco. Don't quite recognise the helmet. Does Fabian Schiller wear glasses?
He didn't when I was meeting him last year, but...
someone's had a bit of an off. We've got slippery track flags, but we've got bits of tyre debris down the back, long straight back towards the pits, just after the Antonius Brucker. Can't see anything else, but someone's clearly shed a fair deal of tyre carcass out on the circuit. So very nearly in at the end of the lap, but clearly someone has had a bit of a scary moment.
Yes, and that would be scary, wouldn't it? Because it's one of the fastest parts of the circuit. I think heading towards Antonius Bucher, and if you have a tyre blowout there, that's when the tyre is most stressed, I guess, when you're at top speed, although...
And ironically, where the driver's probably least stressed, because they can't do anything apart from keep it on the straight and narrow. Haven't seen anybody limping into the pits with tattered bodywork, so I think whoever had that moment is already back in the pit lane. But of course, the pits are very busy because it's the sequence of pit stops. And of the front runners, only the number 12, Lars Kern, driven Mante Porsche, did not come in at the end of the 7th lap. As a consequence, he's now leading the race.
Little bit of time made up on this lap by Martin Ragginger now over Nikolai Moller-Madsen, and some good times being offered by Robin Freins despite that delay in the pit stop. Still have Freins behind the 59 and the 7. Not sure where the 12 is in that mixture. Here is the 12 down the Dottinger Höhe, so heading towards the end of the lap, of course effectively leading the race, although it owes us a pit stop, so surely will call this time around. Needs to duck by one of the slower and older Opel Astras. Rain certainly hammering down at Tiergarten, and plenty of windscreen wiper operation needed there. Just the centrally mounted wiper on car number 12. Does it duck to the right hand side in the pit lane? Yes, it does. Now it's perilously close to the end of the Armco barrier.
Didn't it just, by golly. But what I was just thinking is, was that lap an advantage or a disadvantage? He knows how heavily it's raining over there, but it won't be raining that heavily when he gets around next time after his pit stop. But he's had his chance to lead the race. There's an emptier pit lane by the look of things than there was when all of his rivals came in. So he'd been running 6th, led the race when the 5 cars ahead of him made their pit stops. Let's see if he can have a tidy stop. But he should come out ahead of the Land Motorsport Audi that was sitting for an inexplicably long time at a standstill in a pit stop and lost 2, probably 3 positions accordingly. I think the 28 Audi will come round in 7th place as long as nothing bad happens to the number 12 Mante Porsche in its pit stop.
Yeah, although now that delay has happened, Robin Freins wasting absolutely no time to try and claw some of that time back again, and an impressive Sector 3 time. Quicker than the race leader, quicker than the 2nd place car, and quite quicker than all of the top 7 as car 26.
That's Robin Freins, what do you expect?
Yes, indeed, and well fired up as well after sitting on the pit lane apron, wanting to go much sooner than was possible.
Windscreen wipers are flapping away on the 911. Romain Dumas coming up to complete his first lap, picking his way past back markers. But again, it's this combination, Johnny. Bright sunshine around a lot of the circuit, but yet at other parts we've got the windscreen wipers still going, even through the sunny section. So I think every part of the circuit, in fact, just looking at the camera on the exit of Tiergarten, that's got a bit of rain splash on the lens at the moment. So I think every part of the circuit has had a splash of rain, but start-finish straight looks to be bone dry. In fact, you're getting a slight heat haze off the circuit as the 911 comes around to regain the lead of the race. In the background, well, we reckon it was 8 to 10 seconds behind the Phoenix Audi. How much is it now? Waiting for the timing screen to let us know. Looks about 10 seconds. Oh. But the back part of the circuit, in fact, this is a rundown from Dottinger Höhe, the long shot, but it looks as a lot of moisture hanging in the air there, and certainly still the red and yellow flag to the driver's left as they approach the end of the lap. So still that debris sitting on the circuit. It's tyre debris, maybe the inlining of a wheel arch. Amazed it hasn't been collected, but I guess that's the thing. You've got 180 cars coming down. You haven't got much time to nip over the barriers and pick that up. The marshal has to just simply wave his red and yellow flag.
Yeah, and there will be a point where everybody is aware that debris is sitting not on the racing line, to driver's left, partly on the grass, partly on just the very edge of the track, because we will have new drivers in some of these cars as well that may not know that is there.
Well, in fact, one of the cars is heading straight for that debris right now. It's a Honda Civic, red Honda Civic. Still running in third place overall, the number 4